The Fed signaled a rate cut. Market exploded. The stock ripped higher. The dollar dropped nearly 1% against measures and the bond yield sank. Easy money is back on table. But the story is not that simple. Let's break down why dollar reacted very sharply and what could flip that script. It all started last Friday at Jackson Hole Symposium. The Federal Chairman Jerome has spoken and has admitted there are some cracks in the labor market, which is a significant shift from his previous speech. And him worrying about the weakness of the labor market, which is clearly shown in the data, and the market sentiment really made the dollar fall down significantly due to the fact the September cut is very, very probable. At the time of its speech, from the data CME probability, it shows more than 87% chance for the next Fed cut, in which tells us the market is expecting the September cut according to the Jerome's tone and its dovish stance. As we all know, the Fed has two mandates: maintaining price stability and full maximum employment. And that full maximum employment is a bit on danger, as the data suggests. According to NFP report, last month there were only about 73,000 jobs, which is weaker than expected. Not only that, the revised May and June data revised down by about 258,000 jobs. Whew, that's a very big number. The NFP data and the revised data shows there is a big weakness in the labor market due to higher interest rate. Allow me to explain. Due to the reason of higher interest rate, it does not incentivize borrowing, which means businesses will not borrow that much and will not spend that much, or in this case higher. That will affect the non-farm payroll data significantly. And what came as shocking, longer term unemployment, which means a citizen that filed as unemployed for more than 27 weeks or like 6 months, has increased significantly. If you say by how much, last month about 179,000, making the overall unemployed people for more than 6 weeks about 1.8 million people. From 4.2%, about 1/4 of total unemployed person is in this category, which shows the weakness, how hard it is to get jobs in the US labor market right now due to higher interest rate. But let's stop talking about the labor market only and let's talk about the other mandate of the Fed: inflation. Inflation is cooling down and is trending lower. And the Federal Reserve's target is 2%, or like most central banks around the world, has a target of 2%. There are many tools to gauge the inflation, but two of them are very important. The first one, CPI. The second one, PCE. You might say, oh, okay, let me explain, okay? Just too many acronyms. PCE means Personal Consumer Index, which gauges the average American consumer consumes, and they took the basket of goods that average American consume and gauge the rate of inflation from prior month. And the second one, CPI, Consumer Price Index, similar to Personal Consumer Index or PCE, but CPI gauges across all consumer, not just personal. So to see whether how the average Americans are feeling, the PCE is very important. And it's trending downward. Core PCE, which means excluding volatile items such as food and energy, is about 2.8%. And core CPI, if you ask me, excluding food and energy, 3.1%. Showing inflation is going downwards, but it's a bit sticky. It's not going there to the target of 2%. Not very soon. But if you ask me, this gives even breathing room for the Fed to cut rates, because it's not that high, it's not very low. There is a breathing room for the Fed to cut to the neutral, about 3% or 3.5%. Briefly, we've talked about how the weak labor market is and how the inflation is trending downwards and could give some breathing room for the Fed to cut interest rate. But how can we be sure What are the most key economic data upcoming that would affect this rate cut situation? Well, there are three to be exact. August PCE, the August jobs report, and the August CPI are very crucial. And next week on Friday, August's PCE will be released. Let me remind you, the Fed watches this very closely. So if it's showing the sign of coolness in the market or the sign of coolness on the inflation side from the personal consumption side, it gives an opportunity to ease the monetary cycle, to lower the interest rate. But if it's showing a very high PCE, meaning inflation is sticky, the Trump's inflation is very making things complicated, it gives that unpredictable variable for the next cut. Also, on Thursday, quarterly GDP and unemployment claims will be released. Unemployment claim is not that much interesting because the market is already positioned itself as a weakened labor market due to Trump's actually acknowledging that, and also the data are supporting it very heavily. If the GDP and the unemployment data that came in goes worse or bad, that will fuel up the next cut probability even higher. We will see a weaker dollar. But the most important one, as I said, is on Friday, the PCE. If the PCE is lower than expected, which means inflation is easing off, it will give the room for Fed to cut the rate. And if it is too extreme of a cooling, we're gonna talk about easing, not 25 basis point, even 50 basis point. Now the conversation will change from no cut to suddenly even 50 basis point. As we will see. What do we expect for the next week? From the data we have right now, the dollar is expected to weaken even lower, and the sentiment around it is very weak, which means gold could go higher, stocks will make a record new high, crypto is gonna go up, anything against the dollar will appreciate significantly. And if you got any question, please do let me know on the comments. I will reply to you as I can. Don't forget to like and subscribe this channel. And I'm African Socrates. See you next week.